The road to Vozrozdenia Island. Governments concerned with the development of deadly weapons in the areas of nuclear and chemical warfare have long employed remote islands as their testing grounds, and many have simply been abandoned once research concluded, with authorities hoping their remote locations would keep away would-be explorers and other prying eyes. One such locale was the island of Vozrozdenia, known as Aralsk 7 to the Soviet Union. Situated in the Aral Sea and shared by Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, Aralsk 7 was used for the testing of biological weapons, along with its neighboring Komsomolsky Island. The island has a long history of mysterious weapons research, beginning as early as World War II. From 1936, the Red Army used the island to test a range of bioweapons involving agents such as anthrax, smallpox, plague, and tularemia, all of which are particularly deadly. The covert testing of unfathomably harmful chemical agents continued during the Cold War, and in 1971, an accidental release of aerosolized smallpox infected 10 people, killing 3. The following year, the bodies of 2 fishermen were discovered and are believed to have died of the plague. Soon after, local fishermen began catching full nets of dead fish, and in 1988, a vast herd of 50,000 antelope grazing downwind from the island died in the space of a single hour. Years later, Soviet defectors leaked information regarding the dangers on Vozrozdenia Island, which had become home to a purpose-built town for the 1,500 or so scientists and employees developing these weapons. The town, named Kantubek, even featured a social club, stadium, shops, and schools. In 1992, upon the dissolution of the USSR, Kantubek was evacuated and became a ghost town virtually overnight. In the midst of the chaos, many containers of biological agents were incorrectly stored and have since developed leaks. Once a small island of around 200 square kilometers, Vozrozdenia began to grow in the 1980s as a result of the Aral Sea drying up, primarily due to the Soviet Union having diverted its feeder rivers. A peninsula has been uncovered by the receding waters, connecting the island to the mainland and increasing the ease of access to Vozrozdenia for those would-be explorers once kept away by the waters of the Aral Sea, should they wish to risk their lives to visit one of the most contaminated places on Earth. The land bridge has allowed modern organizations to begin systematically decontaminating the bioweapon burial sites. In 2002, a US-led expedition neutralized between 100 and 200 tons of anthrax over a 3-month period in a $5 million expedition. Perhaps significantly, Vozrozdenia translates to Rebirth Island. Lake Mead. Lake Mead is a reservoir in Nevada and Arizona, the result of the Colorado River's Hoover Dam. Presently, due to drought, the water levels are at their lowest since 1937. As the water level progressively lowers, dark secrets have been unearthed, including human remains. In early 2022, one particularly grisly secret was found stuffed in a rusting metal barrel, the skeletal remains of a person with an apparent gunshot wound. Based on the level of decomposition suffered by the victim's clothing, and by dating the victim's shoes, the murder was estimated to have taken place in the mid-70s to early 80s. The historical nature of this case further complicates matters for the investigators, who are seeking witnesses. Speculations of mob involvement in organized crime have circulated due to the nature of the murder and the circumstances of the burial. The body may have been submerged decades ago, but investigators are still attempting to extract a sample of DNA for testing, a process that grows increasingly difficult when a body is in such advanced stages of decomposition. However, the coroner believes that the cool temperatures of Lake Mead may have helped to preserve the tissues of the body enough to make DNA extraction and tests possible. One woman has come forward and claimed that the remains were those of her brother, a man named Bobby Eugene Shaw, who has been missing since 1977 and was known to be part of the Mafia, which was particularly prominent in Nevada until the late 1970s. Her DNA has been sampled for comparison and is awaiting results. In reference to the location at which the body was found, the individual to whom the remains belong has been dubbed the Hemingway Harbor Doe. Frighteningly, The Hemingway Harbor Doge remains were to be merely the first of 5 bodies uncovered to date by the retreating water levels. Nazi Black Sea Fleet. Much of the world has faced severe drought in 2022, and retreating rivers, lakes, and reservoirs have uncovered sinister secrets of all shapes and sizes. The mighty Danube, which passes through much of Europe and is the continent's second-largest river, has seen some of the lowest water levels in a century. As temperatures rose over the summer and water levels dropped, a fleet of Nazi warships were uncovered, having occupied their watery graves for almost 8 decades. The ships had been part of Nazi Germany's Black Sea Fleet and were sunk by the Germans as they retreated in 1944, an attempt to prevent them from falling into the hands of the pursuing Soviet army. As such, they are frozen in time, still containing many of the supplies and unexploded munitions they once sailed to war with. The vast, crumbling carcasses of these ships remain in place, but local authorities intend to remove them as they pose a threat to the local wildlife and fishing industries, and they obstruct river traffic to the nearby Serbian town of Prahovo. The rusted and waterlogged vessels, which number more than 20, along with their hulls full of explosives, pose a danger to locals and serve as a grave reminder of the international horrors of the early 20th century. Serbian officials have assessed the wrecks, which they claim are home to almost 10,000 pieces of unexploded munitions. They estimate the cost of a cleanup operation to be somewhere in the region of $30 million. Mystery California plane crash. In 2021, sonar researchers used an opportunity presented by record low water levels to test new equipment on the bottom of Folsom Lake in Sacramento, California, which was sitting at only 1/3 of its usual capacity. In the process, they stumbled upon a mysterious discovery. The wreckage of an airplane they believed must be the remnants of a fatal 1965 crash. On New Year's Day, 1965, a Piper Comanche 250 airplane had gone down following a mid-air collision, plunging into Folsom Lake and killing the pilot and all 3 passengers. The other aircraft managed to land safely at a nearby airport. The pilot's body was recovered, but the wreckage of the plane and the bodies of the 3 passengers were never found. The sonar workers, employees of Seafloor Systems, were able to acquire clear images of the plane's tail and propeller due to the extremely low water levels caused by California's severe drought. The images also clearly showed the fuselage, right wing, and engine, but the researchers were unable to see into the cockpit or to make out the aircraft's tail number for identification. When dive team sergeants from the county sheriff's office decided to carry out a closer inspection of the wreckage, it was revealed that the plane was not the Piper Comanche 250 brought down in the 1965 collision, but was in fact that of a non-fatal 1986 crash. The Place County Sheriff's Office released a statement claiming that, quote, "The relatives of the deceased from the 1965 plane crash do not wish for others to search for the plane or remains. They would like for the final resting place of their family to remain at the bottom of Folsom Lake. Officials say that the 1986 wreck will also remain at the bottom of Folsom Lake." Skeleton Lake. In a frostbitten valley in the Indian Himalayas sits Rupkund Lake, which remains frozen for much of the year and is situated around 16,500 feet above sea level. Rupkund Lake has become synonymous with a phenomenon that occurs when it thaws that has earned it the name Skeleton Lake. As its glacial waters defrost and the lake shrinks each summer, numerous human bones are uncovered on the ground. Yet more bones are visible in the clearer waters when the ice melts, a period which lasts around 1 month each year. First discovered in 1942, the skeletons were initially thought to be the remains of Japanese soldiers who'd been planning a surprise attack on British colonials, but it was soon realized that the bones were far too old for this to be the case. In addition to the bones, exploration of the site turned up arrowheads, wooden objects, leather slippers, and rings. Early investigations suggested that these skeletal individuals were perhaps the victims of a legendary hailstorm in the 9th century, which may have violently killed the entire group of people at once. Some of the victims appeared to have suffered head injuries caused by round objects, supporting this theory. Others suggested that the lake was a popular location for a form of ritual death, or that the bones were those of the victims of a contagion, and may have been dumped in the lake to avoid the spread of their disease. Whilst local legend supports the hailstorm hypothesis, more in-depth scientific investigation showed these skeletons to have belonged to 3 distinct groups who had died in separate events, and that the lake was the resting place of men, women, and children. Radiocarbon dating, combined with the DNA testing of 38 individuals, found that some lived as long as 1,000 years apart, and that they were of various ancestries, though predominantly Asian and Mediterranean. To date, more than 300 individual skeletons have been found at Rupkund Lake. While contemporary evidence has provided some new insight, the true origin of the individuals who have come to rest in Skeleton Lake remains an unsolved mystery. Thank you for watching Dark 5. Don't forget to like and subscribe to continue exploring the greatest mysteries of this world and beyond. And let me know if there are any other creepy locations around the world that you want me to explore.